Every goal you set in life requires change. To get from where you are to where you want to be, something has to change. That's what this episode is about. If you're trying to achieve anything, if you're trying to change your life in any way, whether it's changing your body with diet and exercise, changing your job, changing your relationship, finding a relationship, whatever it is, learning a new language, whatever it is, the more you implement all 5 levels of change into your plan for success, the greater your probability of success. The key takeaway from all of this that I want you to get right now as you listen, I want you to have this in mind, is that there isn't just one thing that you need to change, one key. You need to look at all 5 levels that we're going to talk about and do your best to incorporate each of them into your plan to change. As you set your goals and then work out your plan, you're going to need to look at all 5 levels and say, this level, this is what I need to do to achieve this level. This is what I need to do to achieve this level. This is what I need to do to achieve this level. Helps you give a more detailed plan and almost guarantee success in whatever you do. Okay, we're gonna jump right in here. So the first level of change is environment. Whenever you're trying to change something on purpose or even by accident, you change your environment. So think of it this way. When you go on vacation, you leave your home and you go to someplace where you don't have access to your normal foods, your normal grocery stores or whatever. And so you change what you eat while you're on vacation. As soon as you come home, the environment goes back to normal and the change doesn't last, right? You might think, oh man, I went to Italy, I had this great pasta, I'm gonna start eating like pasta all the time. You come home, you don't have access to the same quality of pasta or the same quality of fresh ingredients, and so that change doesn't last. One of the ways that we implement change, we can use environment change to implement changes in our own lives is really simple. Let's say you're going on a diet. Well, you're changing the environment. Well, you're probably not going to move house or whatever, but you can get rid of the food that's in your environment and put healthier food in place. Flip side of that is going to a new environment. So signing up for a gym. When you go to the gym, you're not subject to the distractions of being at home. Now you're in a new environment, you're going to behave differently. You're going to start doing the workout because you're there. You already got there, you might as well do it, right? Change of environment. So during COVID, a lot of us saw both the benefits and the downsides of changing environment to create change in our life. Let's use exercise as an example. Well, we couldn't go to gyms because they were closed. So a lot of people kind of fell off the exercise bandwagon. But a lot of people also learned to do a lot of things at home, doing calisthenics or yoga or different programs, and realizing that they didn't actually need to go to a gym to do those things. So you had both a benefit and a downside to that change of environment. For somebody that really needs to be motivated by being around other people, not having access to a gym or a class or an instructor, that was a real negative downside. But on the other hand, putting exercise equipment in your house, getting a yoga mat at home, an exercise bike, whatever it was, where you had easy access to it, made it real easy for a lot of people to actually begin and stick to those exercise routines. Whereas otherwise, trying to get everything together, get your equipment together and drive to the gym and then drive back, and the time that was spent in that and traffic and the time away from your family, or you just didn't have time to do it, that made it difficult. 2 ways to change environment is to physically move you to another environment where the change is something that's going to be necessary, or to change the environment you're in. One of the small ways that I like to do this is when I got a lot of productivity I need to get done, and I know I'm prone to being lazy sometimes, is I'll unplug my TV. Just by unplugging the TV means that when I get in my habit of sitting down on the couch with a cup of coffee and my phone in my hand, I want to turn the TV on, I hit the remote, and that doesn't work. TV's unplugged. So now I have to get up and walk across the room. I have to really consciously decide I'm going to commit to being lazy and watching TV as opposed to, oh, I unplug this to remind myself to do something. You can change your environment by, using that spare room in your house to make an office where now you have a space in the house that's an office that you go to do things, or a home gym. That's what I do. I have an extra bedroom. I made it into a home gym. So now I have access to all my exercise equipment at home. Those are ways you can modify your environment, change your environment to implement change. But this is the lowest level of change. And like I said, because they're so easy to get out of. It's easy to walk across the room and plug the TV back in. it's easy to close the door and not see the exercise equipment and not do it. There's distractions going on. If you're trying to change your environment, modify your current environment, they still have the old distractions most of the time. So, whether it's kids running around, your partner, your roommates, just things that you like to do instead of what you should be doing, those are there. The flip side is if you have to go somewhere else, it can be inconvenient to go somewhere else. So environmental change is the lowest level of change, and it's going to be hardest to maintain for long term. So what's the next tier of change? Next tier is behavior. This is where you actually do something differently. Now, when you change your environment, that forces you to behave differently, but actively, consciously changing your behavior is where you get the real results of the change. That's why changing your environment is designed to change your behavior. And this is, say you're going on a diet. Well, your behavior change is going to be changing what you eat, how you eat, when you eat. If you're going on an exercise program, that's changing. You're going to start exercising, you start, going to classes or going to the gym and actually picking up weights or getting on the treadmill or the bike or going for your walks or whatever it is. You're going to actually do something. And that's where all the real change actually happens, is when you actually change your behavior. Everything around us is designed to change behavior, but make it permanent. And that's the easiest one for understand, and that's what most people implement. But again, behaviors can be hard. You got to develop that habit, and that habit has to become permanent. And that's where we're really going to get into the next thing. I'm not going to spend a lot of time discussing this particular change because it's the most obvious one. You can go to the gym and sit there on a bench and not do anything, and you've changed your environment, but you haven't changed your behavior, and you're not going to get any better shape. The reason that you go to the gym, the reason you changed your environment was so that you would engage in different behavior. Okay? So we're going to just leave it at that. It's pretty self-explanatory. Changing your behavior is the next level of change. But again, it doesn't last. Most people will do it for a little while and then get bored or make excuses or just get tired of it and not do it anymore or forget, whatever. So that's why we're going to move on to the next level of change. Now we're going to get into beginning to make that change lasting. You've changed your environment, you've changed your behavior, engaged in new behaviors. The next step is developing new skills and knowledge. This is level 3. This is where things begin to actually make an impact. So for an example, recently I changed my workout program and began doing something called rope flow, which is pretty interesting. You should go look it up, Google it, look up some YouTube videos. Pretty fun. It's all about mobility, and it's about changing the way you use your body, moving better, more fluidly, better use of your spine and stuff like that. And you do that by using this rope to facilitate communication between left and right side of your body. But when you do it, when you start out, you start with very simple patterns. You're kind of swinging the rope overhand and underhand, and then moving it back and forth across your body. These are skills. You have to develop the skills to then move on to the next thing. But this is where it becomes really interesting. When you develop those skills, you begin to use them. So for example, with rope flow, as you're swinging the rope back and forth from one side of your body to the other, you're moving your shoulders side to side. You're shifting your weight from one side to the other, putting the weight on your right foot, putting the weight on your left foot. This can translate into changing how you walk, giving you better balance, because instead of walking with your head and your shoulders straight while your legs move up and down, you shift your upper body weight over the leg that's on the ground. So you begin to shift and shift and shift and shift. That skill translates into everyday life. As you say you're going on a diet and you're changing what you eat, well, you're going to develop new skills. It might be developing meal planning. It might be understanding, the labels on the food that you buy so you can make better choices. Knowledge goes along with skills. As you gain better knowledge about the topic that you're trying to change, you begin to implement it more successfully. So, and this is where you really begin to see the benefits and the payoffs, because this helps begin to integrate it into your life more thoroughly. Same thing with doing an exercise routine. When you start working, say you start lifting weights for the first time and you go and you need to learn how to squat and deadlift. Well, you're going to start with very low weights because you need to ingrain that skill. And this is one takeaway for sure that I want you to take from this, is skills are learned slowly at slow speeds and low weights. So low intensity, low stress, skills are learned with slow, easy movements. Once they're ingrained, you can increase the stress level, whether that's moving faster, moving heavier weights, as a bartender, learning the skill of a proper shake. Well, when I first was told that there's an actual right way to shake a drink, I was told to go home, watch a YouTube video, and practice with shakers with rice. But what I had to do was, instead of just going into it full speed, was go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, really slow, and feeling that rice, which would translate into ice later on, moving around in the shaker. And as I did that, I began to ingrain those movement patterns into my nervous system until it becomes automatic. And then as it becomes automatic, it gets faster and faster and faster. And that's how you learn anything. Same thing with it's riding a bike, whether it's learning how to do a U-turn on a motorcycle, lifting weights, doing rope flow, cutting vegetables like a chef. Any new skill, you start slowly and it will build, speed will build. And that's the important thing. Same thing with knowledge. As you get better at something, say, like I said, if it's exercise, you're going to learn more about, or it's diet, you're going to learn more about nutrition so you can make better decisions. If it's exercise, you're going to learn more about forms and the impacts of different types of exercise in your body so you can develop the body you want. You're trying to develop endurance, you're going to do that differently than if you're trying to develop strength. If you're trying to develop both side by side, you're going to have to develop your exercise programs. At first, you're going to utilize a program that's pre-designed, or you're going to utilize an instructor to kind of guide you through it. But as you get better at it, you're going to automatically develop those skills. Maybe you go to yoga class, and at first those poses are really uncomfortable and unbalanced, and you feel like just really ungainly, and you can't make it happen, and you're like you don't feel very strong. But with practice over and over, you get better at it, and you can just seamlessly move from one pose to the next, to the next, to the next. That's developing those skills. That's when you begin to really internalize the change. It's also when you begin to really see the effects. So, say you're on that diet and you've been pre-planning your food and taking your meals to work and all this stuff and eating at home, and you got everything figured out and developing that knowledge base, and now you're going out to dinner for the first time on this new diet. Well, you have a choice. Either you skip the diet and just eat out, or you make it better informed decisions when you look at the menu. Maybe ask some questions of the server to find out certain ingredients, whatever it is. But as you gain that knowledge, you can make those decisions so you can incorporate it into your life more fully. So that's developing skills is the next level of change. And this is where things become way more impactful. If you don't stick with anything long enough in order to develop skills, you don't get the impact. So the next caveat I'm going to say this is the next takeaway. It's whatever it is you're trying to learn. Approach every session from session 1 on. Every iteration, so it's meal 1, session 1, day 1, whatever it is. Try to find one small skill or bit of knowledge that you can take away from that you can develop and kind of hone, and then build. So each time you're trying to increase your knowledge, increase your skill as you're engaging in the activity. That's going to become important when we start talking about the next level. All right, on to level 4. This is where things get really interesting. As you develop your knowledge and your skill, you begin to change your beliefs and your values. You might have thought, I'm going to give you a prime example. Years and years ago, in the 80s, when the big aerobics craze was going on, everybody believed that aerobics was the best way to burn fat. And they believed this because there was a study that said that while you're engaged in aerobic activity, your body preferentially burns fat. And that's true. However, as we studied exercise more and more over the last 40 plus years, we discovered something else, that low impact aerobic exercise burns more fat than carbohydrates while you're doing it, because high intensity burst exercises like sprinting or heavy weightlifting or whatnot actually require carbohydrates to develop that short, quick burst of power. So your body burns carbohydrates during that time period. But that type of exercise, that kind of intense resistance exercise, has a knock-on effect where it elevates your metabolism to burn more fat after the exercise is done. Whereas aerobic activity burns more fat during the activity, but then as soon as you stop, you go back to baseline. So if you want to burn fat long-term, probably doing steady state cardio is going to have some effect, but intense resistance training is going to have a bigger effect on the amount of fat that you burn over the course of a 24-hour period. Or that knowledge also changes the way you view things. It changes your beliefs. And as you begin to see the impact of the change of your new skills and knowledge and your behavior changes in your life, it's going to change the way you look at certain things. But it works in other ways too. As you begin to see changes in your own life, perhaps in your own body, but also in the way you live your life, maybe in the way you move, the way your effectiveness at work, if you're changing something, like maybe you learned a new skill, like learned how to use Excel, so now you can apply that in your life. You begin to see, oh, you want to apply it to everything now, right? So when I first learned how to use Excel, I was using it basically to make a household budget, which if you haven't seen it, watch my previous podcast. It talks about how to set up an easy budget and how to follow it. But when I got into business, then I started using it to do other things, to look at my expenses and how they change from month to month and project to project. And then when I became a bartender, I used it to track all my shifts and figure out and do graphs and figure out which days were the best days to work and which months were the best months to take off for vacation and all these things. All because I learned how to use a spreadsheet. I learned a new skill, and that led to a new belief of how useful that could be in ways to apply to my life. As you develop you change your environment and develop new behaviors, those lead into new skills and knowledge, and now that leads into new beliefs and values. And those beliefs and values really drive behavior. Because if you think about it, your unconscious beliefs in life drive your behavior. Now, this fourth level of values and beliefs, as they change as you gain knowledge and experience and see the results of your behavior, this applies to everything. Because now the small changes in your values and beliefs that you made from the new behavior whether it's a diet or exercise routine or a new skill set that you're learning, whatever that is going to carry over into other parts of your life, and it's going to drive new behaviors that complement the ones you're trying to change. And this is where it becomes very important to be conscious of your values and beliefs. And this is where I see the biggest impact with my clients as a coach. When I'm doing coaching, one of the first things that we do is really dig in to your values and beliefs, because a lot of times they're unconscious. So if you have this belief that exercise is hard, you're going to avoid it, and it's going to be a real drudgery to make you do it. Whereas if you have this belief that exercise is fun, then you're going to engage in it. You're going to want to do it. One of the best ways to begin exercising is going for a walk. And there's proof that just 10 minutes of walking releases all these dopamine and endorphins and growth factors and all this stuff in your brain and your endocrine system that makes it a really rewarding thing, so that you engage in it more, and then you start to get all those cardio benefits of walking, and you begin to change your movement patterns, and it improves your brain power and your memory and your focus and all these great benefits of walking. When you unconsciously begin to associate these improvements in your life, I just feel better every day. I feel happier. I feel less depressed. I get more focused. I like more focused at work if I do my walk in the morning beforehand. You start to notice these things, these correlations, and that changes your beliefs. A lot of times our beliefs in life are unconscious. They were developed in us as children when we weren't really being critical of the things we were being taught or modeling things from people who had unhealthy beliefs. This is where being conscious of them becomes really important, because yes, engaging in a new behavior for long enough and developing those skills and knowledge will change your beliefs. But if you attack it from the top down and consciously look at the beliefs that you have around the behavior you want to change, you can then begin to root out those negative beliefs at the beginning. And that's going to make it easier to stick to whatever change you want long term. Instead of starting at the bottom with the environment and behavior, start with, okay, I want to start working out. What do I believe about working out? Well, it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. It's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of time. I'm not going to see results for a while. Okay, so these are beliefs. They may or may not be true. Start looking for counterexamples. Look at things that, look for people who say it's easy. Look for ways in which you can make it easy. Look at ways in which, I don't have to do it in a gym. I can do it at home. Or I can start by just walking. That's easy. I can do that. Okay. And that's fun and pleasurable. So, okay, working out isn't hard. you start to find ways to work around those negative beliefs and to change those negative beliefs, the sooner you can do that, the more permanent those changes are going to become, those changes that you want to make. That is where I start with coaching anything. And coaching is about change. That's all it is. Coaching is about changing your behavior so you have a better life. Whatever it is, whether it's athletic coaching for somebody teaching you yoga, whatever, or business coaching or relationship coaching, you start by looking at the beliefs, finding the flaws in those belief systems, the places where they don't hold up, and then you can begin to install new beliefs that support you. Working from belief system down, really the best place to start looking for making change. Now we're at the top of the pyramid. The number one most effective way to change anything in your life that make it absolutely permanent is to make it part of your identity. And when I say identity, what I mean is how you think about yourself. When you close your eyes and imagine looking in the mirror, who do you see? And does that image match who you see when you actually look in a mirror? And I'm going to show you an example from my life about how all levels of this, from my identity, my beliefs, and my skills and knowledge, to my behavior and my environment, all play in to make a permanent change in my life and my behavior that I see the impact of every day. So buckle up. Here's my personal story. I was always kind of a skinny, small kid in school, and really not interested in sports. In gym, we'd have, we'd be playing kickball or, capture the flag or dodgeball, and I wasn't very good at it. And I got made fun of, and I got bullied. And as I moved into junior high and high school, the bullying continued, and it was generally the athletes who were doing the bullying. So I associated sports with bullies and these negative things. On top of which, my father was a big athlete when he was in school, and his way of trying to connect with me was mostly through athletics, which I had no interest in. He likes to watch sports on TV. I couldn't care less. He wanted me to get involved in sports at school, so one year I went out for track and field, hated that. One year I went out for football, hated that. One year I went out for wrestling, hated that. And on top of which, again, I wasn't very good at them, wasn't very motivated to do them, so I got bullied and made fun of. And essentially, because I wasn't very good at them, it was an exercise in failure. I constantly would go to these practices and endure these grueling workouts and getting yelled at by coaches and bullied by the other kids, and then go to the match or meets or games or whatever, and either not get any time on the field or get just pummeled and beaten in every sense of the word. So it was just, all this work and all this pain and all this discomfort for no reward, just constant failure. So by the time I graduated high school, I wanted nothing to do with sports or athleticism. Didn't care about it at all. What I had was a whole bunch of values and beliefs about negative things about sports and athleticism that translated into behaviors of which I avoided it. Didn't want anything to do with it. Somebody brings up sports, I would actively say, I don't care. Somebody gets super excited about their team or whatever, instead of going, oh, that's really cool, you're excited about it. Like, hey, I want to share your excitement, educate me, show me something about it. Nope, don't want to do it, don't want to care, that's stupid, it's a waste of time, whatever. I became, in a way, that bully. I'd make fun of them for being interested in something I thought was pointless. That's how the values and beliefs and my identity, I identified as someone who didn't care about sports, and I made it part of who I was. So fast forward a few years, 23 years old, I end up having to get a job as manual labor, doing manual labor. And I did this kind of work for about 2 years. And in the process of having to lift and carry heavy things all day long, I got very strong. I didn't get really big. I'm obviously not a very big guy, but I got strong. I was that kind of like skinny, wiry strong. If you couldn't do the job, you couldn't show up and lift the things and do the work, then you didn't get paid. That's work. So I got very strong, but I didn't realize I got strong. I just did the job. I didn't realize how strong I'd gotten. And then I changed jobs, and I got a job that was essentially taking meetings in office and helping out with, putting together presentations and stuff like that. And After about 6 months of that, office work, the money was better, I was doing good. I went to go pick up a saw that I used when I was doing manual labor in construction. And I remember I knew what that saw weighed. When I was doing construction, I was lifting it and moving it around all day long. It was like I did it every day. It was just part of the job. You unloaded it off the truck, you loaded it back on the truck at the end of the day. I moved this saw all day long, and it was no big deal. Well, after 6 months of not doing any physical work, I went to go pick it up, and it was heavy. I was astounded at how heavy it was. And that triggered something in my brain. What it triggered in my brain was this thought, I'm not weak. That's wrong. This is not who I am. That saw should be easy for me to lift. And I went home that night and I began looking up home exercise equipment. Did my research and got a home gym and then began working out at home. And within 6 more months, I was strong again. This is where I was talking about identity. I had identified as someone who was against athleticism, but then through my work, I began to identify as someone who's physically fit and strong. And then when suddenly I was slapped in the face with this knowledge that my reality of my body no longer matched the identity in my head, I made a change. Because I was going to make my body match my identity. I couldn't avoid it. I couldn't look in the mirror and say, oh yeah, no, it's not true. I am actually strong, because I was just faced with it. I had to do something and I couldn't do it, or I couldn't do it easily. So then I began working out. And at first it was, I got the home gym and it came with a booklet with a bunch of exercises and a pre-programmed schedule of days and exercises to do and like a diet plan, all that stuff. So I started following that and I worked through that and I got a lot stronger. I saw great results. So now I have changed my environment by getting the home gym and changed my behavior by engaging in the exercise. And I got to the point where it's like, okay, I did everything in the book. I'd like gone through like 3 levels of programs, and I gotten strong. It's like, okay, well, what do I do now? Like, I want to keep getting stronger because I like how I look now. Because now when I look in the mirror, my identity was this. This was good. This was positive. I felt good. I looked good. People were commenting on it. Felt really good. So that changed my identity about who I was and my beliefs about how I lived and what was healthy for me. Because now I was eating better. I had new knowledge and beliefs about health. I had new knowledge and skills about how to move my body. And it was showing up in everything I did. But now I was like, okay, what do I do now? Okay, I had to start doing some research. The internet was just beginning to be a thing. So I got on Amazon, and like when Amazon only did books, and I found some books, not just exercise books, but exercise physiology, like the science behind it and all those things. And I started to accumulate knowledge about nutrition. And then one day, one of my friends came up to me and said she wanted to lose weight, and could I give her some advice? And boom, that's when it hit me. I had become the guy that my friends associated with fitness. My identity of myself as someone who was fit and strong and ate healthy and looked like a fit person and moved well and had all those athletic qualities. I didn't think of myself as an athlete. I still really don't. But I think of myself as fit, and that's my identity. Well, now I became conscious that other people around me also saw me that way. And when your identity from yourself is reflected by the way people treat you in the outside world, that really makes things permanent. What happens when life changes? Went through some changes, and at one point I hurt my back and I couldn't lift weights. And this lasted several months. I couldn't lift weights. So when I came back, okay, I started to lift weights, and it's like I immediately tried to do the big heavy weight that I used to do, and I hadn't lifted weights in months. I couldn't do it. And I almost hurt my back again. Like I could feel it beginning to twinge. And that was dumb. So a little bit of learning, a little more knowledge base instilled there. But then I started back lighter, and I got back to where I was. And that was when I was about 25. As I record this, I'm 53, and I've consistently worked out in one way or another ever since. And there have been periods where I've stopped. In fact, earlier this year, I went through a period where my job was really difficult and taking a lot of stress and energy from me, and I went through a relationship breakup and I was feeling really sad and depressed, and just a lot of things in life were bearing down on me. And I found it harder and harder to get out of bed in the morning and work out. So I skipped a day, and then I skipped my next day, and then I've taken the whole week off, so I've kind of ruined the whole thing. And I'll take another week off, and then I'll start again. With another week turned into a couple more weeks, and then I just wasn't even thinking about working out. And then one day I looked in the mirror while I was getting dressed and looked at my body and was like, that is not me. That's not what I see. What I see in the mirror doesn't match what I see when I close my eyes. Time to get back on it. And the motivation started back up again, and I came back because what I saw in the mirror didn't match my internal identity. And you will always do that. If your internal identity doesn't match what you see in the real world or what's reflected back to you by the people around you, you will shift back to whatever your internal identity is. And this is why it's so important to really look at what your internal identity is. If you're out of shape, if you're someone who doesn't eat well, and you go on diets and you go on exercise programs and they last for a few weeks or a few months, and then you slip back to the old way, look at your internal identity. When you close your eyes and you see yourself, who do you see? Do you see that old you? You're always going to go back to that. But if you can change how you think about yourself, then you have a really powerful tool that will cause you to change everything beneath it. It will change your knowledge. You will find ways to learn new knowledge and skills. Those knowledge and skills will translate into beliefs and values, and those will translate into behaviors, which will drive you to change your environment. And environment can include the people around you, because sometimes the people around you won't let you change. They see you in a certain way, and they don't like change, so they're not going to let you change. So sometimes you need to let those people go. And that's a hard lesson in life, but you just spend less time on it. Think about it. If you go to the gym and you start working out, you make friends at the gym who also work out, and you start spending more and more time around them and less time around your friends who don't work out, you're changing your environment. You're changing the people around you. And the people around you, the new people around you, the people you met at the gym who work out all the time, see you as someone who works out with them. So you're their workout buddy. You're another exercise enthusiast, whatever it is. That reflects back to you a new identity, a new self-image. And that's going to drive that behavior. That's going to drive those values and beliefs. It's going to drive that knowledge and skill. It's going to drive your environmental decisions. It's going to drive everything. Fastest and most powerful way to drive change is to change your identity. You have to really dig in and do some real hard inner work to change your identity. You can do it the reverse, but it's going to take a lot longer and it's going to be a lot harder. So if you can work from the top down, that changes everything. So I always recommend, if you can't change your identity right off the bat, changing your beliefs and values. You can really consciously look at those and look at your negative ones and disprove them. Find positive ones that support the new behavior you want. And over time, that will begin to change your identity, because identity and beliefs and values are pretty closely linked. That's why they're right next to each other on the pyramid. But if you can really dig into your identity and begin to see your old identity that you don't want, and begin to focus more on your new identity and getting the world around you to reflect that new identity, however that is. That can be, like I said, changing the people that you associate with. That can be changing your inner self-talk, the way you dress, say your habits are, changing the way you speak, both internally and externally. Whatever you can do to change your identity to match the new identity, the faster and more permanent the changes you want to make are going to become. Now, I promised you a bonus, and here it is. There is one level above identity that drives everything else, and that is your sense of purpose. And by purpose, I mean being a part of something greater than yourself. If you believe that everything you do is in support of something outside of yourself, something that you believe is very valuable and important, that is more important than you, then that will drive your identity, which will drive your beliefs and values, which will drive your knowledge and skills, which will drive your behavior, which will drive your environment, working all the way down. And what your sense of purpose is can vary from person to person. Me personally, I believe my purpose is to help other people live better lives, to be happier and more fulfilled in whatever way that means. I know somebody who, is having back problems, I'm going to show them the way I went about the things I found useful to solve my back problems. If I see someone else struggling with a job they hate, I'm going to try and help them find a new job. If I see someone struggling with a relationship problem, I'm going to be that shoulder to cry on and maybe offer them some advice if they want that. I'm going to try and make everyone's life around me better. And that's my purpose. I had a client who was an entrepreneur and running his business, and he thought his purpose was to make the business successful, make a lot of money. But when we started digging into it, what he really wanted was to be an example to younger men who are facing struggles similar to what he faced coming up, and show them that what was possible. He wanted to be that example of possibility to other people. And that began to drive his business decisions and his personal decisions. And suddenly his struggling company began to succeed because he was making different decisions based on that purpose. Because it wasn't about, I'm going to hire this person because they've got the best resume. It was, I'm going to hire this person because they've got a good resume, but they also share my vision of being an example to the community. And so I know they're going to work hard to fill in the gaps in the resume that the other guy might have, because they want to be an example where the other guy was just out for himself or to make more money. The other guy wasn't part of that vision. When you really hone in on what your purpose is, and that can be a really tough thing. It took me a long, long time to figure out what my purpose is. And that's one of the things I do as a coach, is help people really hone that in and kind of shorten that learning curve. Some people just know what their purpose is. I know a young man who has known since he was 10 or 12 years old what he wanted to do with his life. And he went to school. As soon as he figured it out, his grades got better. He got into the college he wanted to go to. He got his degree. He got a great job doing what he wanted, and he's continued to move up and up and up, and is now, travels the world. He's been traveling the world nonstop for 3 years, while doing the job he loves doing and making great money, because he had this sense of purpose of like, this is what I'm meant to do. And so he did it and has an amazing life. Figuring out what your sense of purpose is, what your purpose is in life, and it's individual and unique to everybody. And then figuring out that will drive everything below. It drives your identity, your beliefs, your values, your knowledge, your skills, your behavior, and your environment. And where you find that, that's really up to you. If that's something you want some help with, hit me up. There's a link in the description below to schedule a free consultation, because that is what I do. I can only work with a few people at a time. Obviously, there's only one of me, only a limited amount of time in the day. So I only take on a few clients at a time, but I'd love to talk to you if you think that's something you'd be interested in. All right, so going back and looking at the levels of belief, the higher up this pyramid that you can start to make change, the faster and more permanent those changes are going to make, whatever that change is, whether it's better relationships, whether it's a better job, a better body, better health, everything that you want to do, everything you want to accomplish in life, anywhere you want to be, any goal you set, to get to that goal from where you are now requires change. And the higher up on this pyramid that you can start, the better, more effective, and faster results you're going to get. So really think about what it is when you have your goal set that you want to accomplish. How does it incorporate with your identity? How does it incorporate with your beliefs and values? What knowledge and skills do you need to learn to achieve it? What behaviors do you need to change? And what environmental changes do you need to make? If you can incorporate all of that into your planning for your goal, your chances of success are infinitely better. My name is Charles. I'm the founder of Rebel Craft Life Coaching. I hope you've really enjoyed this. I hope you found it useful. If you did, and you think it'd be useful for someone else, please send it to them. Share it with somebody who you think will benefit from this. I'm sure you know somebody in your life who's trying to make a change, if it's not you. Share this with them. Hopefully it's useful, and stay tuned. I got some really good, new, interesting podcasts coming up in the next few weeks, okay? Peace out. I love y'all.